Okay.
But we can talk for like 10 seconds. Hey everyone, welcome. All right. Hello everyone. Oh, we already have one viewer. Look at that. It's probably no. Oh, it's you. Hey everyone, welcome to Ladies and Social Podcast. My name is Sada.
And my name is Christine.
Today we have a very special episode, which I always say. We're going to be discussing navigating womanhood in the South Sudanese community. And we have two special guests that are going to be joining us. One is South Sudanese time, running on South Sudanese time, so they are coming. But now we have Nora, right? Who's
Yes.
actually my cousin. We just found out today that we're related. Her auntie Julia is her mom, and so we're related. But I'll let her kind of give you that information. But go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi guys. Hi everybody. Yes, I'm Nora, Dwayne, or Dwayne, as some of you know. I am based out of DC. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're super excited. Go ahead, Christine.
Awesome. So I'm just going to preface the episode real quick. And for everyone who's joining us, if you guys could like the video as you come in, it would help us so much with boosting this video out to people. But welcome to the Ladies of SOSA. In honor of Women's History Month, today's episode is dedicated to the remarkable legacy of South Sudanese women. Our mothers dreamed of survival and stability. Today we're...
Christine, your audio is kind of in and out.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, do you mind going to intro then?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I'm going to read it straight from our framework. Okay, so in honor of International Women's Month, we wanted to dedicate this entire month to discussing like women's topics, specifically South Sudanese women's topics. And last week we discussed womanhood. It was in a different. What was the last week's topic? I'm sorry, Christine, I forgot last week's topic. Wasn't it?
It's basically the same thing, but we interviewed a South Sudanese author who had a book that was actually titled "I Am My Mother's Wildest Dreams."
Yes.
So that was the title of the episode. Finally, with that episode.
Yeah. So the episode was titled "I Am My Mother's Wildest Dreams," and we just kind of discussed like the parallels between how we grew up here in diaspora as South Sudanese women and how our mothers grew up here, and kind of like this cultural standards, like the cultural norms, and things that we took away from our mothers and things that we kind of like left alone or create our own culture, so to say. So today we're going to be discussing navigating womanhood in the South Sudanese diaspora, especially being in our 20s and 30s, and what that looks like. So I'll read the framework from what it is. So for many South Sudanese and African women, navigating womanhood is layered with both cultural and societal expectations. Whether it's the pressure to marry young, build a family, or prove ourselves in careers while balancing traditions, the expectations can feel overwhelming. But is there really a right way to do it? So we're going to be answering that today. And Grace has made. Hi, Grace. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello.
Just in time.
Hi, my name is Grace. I'm 29 years old. And yeah, I live in the DFW area.
Okay. So let's go ahead and start giving you guys a proper like introduction. Like, what is your background? What I know, me, Lisa, and Christine just spoke to Nuck before we got on stage, and you have a pretty interesting background. You lived in South Sudan for a little bit. You came back to the U.S. and worked. You went to a very prestigious university. You went to Harvard. So I'll let you get into all of that before we start.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks again. This is great.
Yeah.
So, I'm Knock. I grew up though in Indiana. Most of us either came to the U.S. as, very young children. My family came to Bloomington, Indiana because of the university that my parents were affiliated with. So there were no other South Sudanese in sight. If we were lucky, we'd go to the Midwest and visit, but pretty much we were isolated. We had other African families and other individuals from the university that I grew up with. But one of the things that my family is known for is basketball. So we all played basketball, and all me and my siblings played college basketball. So I ended up leaving Indiana, and I played college basketball at Georgetown University, which was a great experience. So lived there for 4 years, got more experience into the South Sudanese culture because, of course, in Virginia and Maryland, DC, there's a lot more diaspora South Sudanese that live here. My uncle lives in Woodbridge, so was able to interact with my cousins more. Eventually, played professional basketball overseas in Portugal for a year, which was amazing. And then from basketball, transitioned to modeling. So got scouted to do modeling. So modeled in Europe for a little bit, then moved to New York. And then eventually was hearing all the buzz about South Sudan and moved back to Juba. And so I lived in Juba for 7 years. That in itself was an experience, changed me completely because it was my first time to go back to South Sudan since I was a little kid, a little girl, had no memories of it, but got to have that experience with my father who had moved back and my mother as well. And so, but then conflict happened. So I came back to the US. At that time I was married and had 2 kids. So I had to decide, okay, what am I going to do now? I've spent all this time, 7 years in South Sudan, unable to kind of jump back in the US and get a job easily. So I decided to go back to grad school. Luckily, you know, my story and the story of South Sudan helped me get accepted to Harvard, where I did a master's in public administration. And then eventually wanted to transition. My background is in finance, wanted to transition to tech. So while I was in school, my effort was whatever I do, I have to transition. I have to pivot out of finance and get to tech. And so I got a job with a tech company and then moved to DC and have been doing that ever since. So I'm a cloud security executive here in DC.
Love it. A very decorated resume. A little bit everywhere. I didn't even know that you went to Portugal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, Grace, do you want to go ahead and kind of give the audience like your background and then anything?
Yeah, so I came, can you guys hear me? Or is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We can't see you though.
Okay.
Okay.
It was switching. My name is Grace. I'm 29 and I was born in South Sudan, or Sudan at the time. And then we moved to Egypt so that we could wait. You know, that whole process. I don't know necessarily which of the two that we did. And so we got accepted and we finally got to come to America in 2002. And so I was still pretty much young. I was 6 years old, but I had turned 7 2 months after that. And so I was pretty much raised here. And then everything was pretty normal until like last year. That's when I decided to become sober because I wasted a lot of my years drinking. And so now I'm finally starting it up and pretty much finishing what I wanted to actually do, which is teach. But honestly, after so many things happen, I have a new lease on life. And so I'm going to be doing a lot more things, like things that I didn't think I could do because whenever I was raised here, I thought that you only had one road to go. Like you can either be a teacher, a doctor, an engineer, you know, any of those things. But after kind of finishing my degree, I realized I was like, wait, you can actually do it all. You can do anything. And so I'm going to be doing that.
Yeah. And you've been very open about like your sobriety journey on social media. And I love that. We're so proud of you. Mm-hmm. Love the transparency. I'm sure you're helping a lot of people because alcoholism is a big thing in our community. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think we've all had some experience where maybe we overindulged, you know, mm-hmm. on certain things. So you're one of the few people that's actually been open about it because it's very taboo. So I can't wait to get into that as well because I think that's a part of like your journey as becoming a woman. So
yes, for sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to say Grace actually spoke at our event that we did in December, and she gave her testimony. So I think that was very powerful. So it's really cool that we can finally on that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really hard for me.
Yeah,
but it needed to be done. I mean, yeah, we'll get into it later. But
you were very brave. I was like, wow. I mean, because it's one thing to talk about it with like the younger generation, but the elders were there. And the fact that you were open about like how you struggled with alcohol in front of our aunts and our uncles was very, very commendable because they're the ones who actually need to hear it, I think. So,
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Segue into the first segment, which is the weight of expectations, the pressure that's placed on South Sudanese women, especially in your 20s and 30s, whether it be marriage, kids, career, what's expected of you versus what you want for your own life. And then kind of, I would love for Grace to kind of start because I know that you kind of shared your battle with alcohol addiction and kind of been able to overcome it. And I know you kind of know kind of the pressures, like you were saying earlier, that is placed on South Sudanese women. And now you're kind of navigating what being successful means for you in your own life. How are you able to overcome like the taboo that comes with battling alcohol addiction and still being able to stand up tall? Because the way you spoke in front of the people, there was no shame. I even told you, I was like, you're so inspiring, so powerful. How like you take away the shame when you're able to proudly like tell your testimony and say that's what I was, but I'm changing now. So how were you able to navigate that whole process?
Honestly, it was God because there was no way I could have stopped, and there was no way I could have even told the world because I was honestly going to just act like nothing ever happened and just be sober for the rest of my life, you know. But I continuously see a lot of our youth and even our aunties and uncles just being belligerently drunk, you know, or even sometimes just hiding it. And it's just, it's super sad. Like, you know, me finally being sober and seeing those things, it's super sad and heartbreaking. So I'm like, you know what? Like, I need to put away my embarrassment and how I feel about this because that's no longer me. But I've never seen anybody, and especially in our community, talk about it. And so I'm like, I don't want the rest of us to live in this bounded life, you know, this boundless life. And so, well, I want us to live in a boundless life, but I feel like we were abounded by all of those things. And so it was just God who gave me that courage, to be honest, and then gave me even more courage to post it on Facebook and let my worlds collide, like my church people from back whenever I was young, you know, and then to high school people, to just anybody that wasn't only on my Instagram. So I felt like my worlds were really colliding and I had to just tell the truth now. And yeah, I feel like it helped. So God was definitely the leader of that. And then as for like pressures, I've always been somebody that like never really cared what other people thought. I mean, in terms of like my relationship, I've always wanted to be in a relationship though. That was the catalyst of me drinking, because I've been single my whole life. And then I felt the pressures really came from the people my age and a little bit like a little bit older than me or even a little bit younger than me. I never really got pressures from my aunties or my uncles or anything like that. They more so kind of wanted me to just focus on school and, you know, make sure that you don't get pregnant and all that stuff. So I feel like the pressure really came from my peers and yeah, people that are just a little bit older and who already have, you know, who's already been in a relationship. They kind of look down on me, or even if I try to give them advice, they're like, you don't know anything, which is true. I mean, I don't, but I know what it feels like to be disrespected, and you should know better. But yeah.
okay, so part of the reason why you were drinking is because like you were trying to find like I guess fill that void of being single, or you were going out to find a partner.
No, not really necessarily that. It was just like an accumulation of a lot of things. I mean, I'm gonna say that not being in a relationship was definitely like a hit to my personality and to my, well, ego. It was a hit to my ego, and just constantly year after year not being in one. And then also my birthday's on Valentine's Day, so that's just a constant reminder of being alone. And yeah, so it was just very hard for me to deal with that. And then being in college, everybody's drinking, and so I started to lose myself, and I started to feel like I can't be myself anymore or confident anymore unless I drink, I take a sip or anything like that, because then I'll be exuberant, I'll be happy, you know, I won't think about my pain. But then it's a cycle. I do it over and over. I'm coming back home, I'm crying, you know,
Yeah.
go back out, and then the same thing.
So I guess it's a good segue into talking about like the pressures that are placed on South Sudanese women to be in relationships or to get married, to have children. And I think, Milk, you can speak to this as well. I guess like with marriage, kids, career, maybe juggling both of those things, or what has been expected of us? Like, what are the societal norms that have been placed on us by our culture, by our parents, and what is it that we want, or what do you want for yourself? Like, I would love to talk about those two dynamics. And go ahead, no, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our culture, it's so interesting because it's like, don't date, don't talk to boys, hide it. Let's not talk about sex. Let's not talk about relationships. And then when you reach a certain age, it's like, oh, like get married, get married. What's going on? What's going on? The aunties are having a hard time.
It's just like a dichotomy. It's like so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of us, particularly, us diaspora that were raised in the US, we were raised very, to be independent, right? And so, there was I don't remember, I think it was on TikTok or a clip about a young South Sudanese girl talking about the difference of how the girls are raised in a South Sudanese household versus the boys. The girls are raised to be very independent. And so so in my household, it was like that. Well, I actually, my brothers also were raised to be independent, but like whatever they did for my brothers, they did for us. So they're like, oh, you're 16, 15, it's time to learn how to drive. You're driving too. And so we all were doing all the same things. You have to join the basketball team. You're joining the basketball team. You can also join the basketball team. So all these things that developed. So then when we became older and, focusing on our career, on education. So I have a sister and I have an older sister. And so it was easier for me because I was just following her footsteps. But our parents, they raised us to be independent and focus on education. And so my sister was on a track for medicine, and she had it in her mind, I am not going to get married till I graduate from medical school. And like she sat my parents down and they respected that goal. And so I did not get married until I was 29. And so, and in South Sudan, I mean, they think that's like, damn, you have a problem, that's late. My sister didn't get married until she was 32. But at the end of the day, it's like we have to do what is right for us. And so and when I moved back to Juba, so it was even crazier that I came to Juba and I was moving around here and I was like 27, I was 28, and I was not in a relationship, was not in a relationship. And it is that pressure is tough because unfortunately they raise us one way, but then there's the expectation to, when you hit a certain age, whether that's like 23, 24, 25, why are you not married? What's happening? What's the conversation? Is something wrong with you? But I think it's important that, I think luckily, like I said, I had an older sister who was kind of pushing the way and had an honest conversation with our parents. Like, you raised us like this. You told us to focus on our education. We have goals. And part of that goal right now is to maybe finish our education. And if we happen to find a great man along the way, that's wonderful. But that is not the goal at this time. And so I think pressuring our parents, and kind of cutting out the noise, because sometimes our aunties could be harder on us than our own parents. And so cutting out all that noise and just really, locking in with your own individual parents and having them respect, your decisions and your journey. But for us, we were considered, old, being married at 29 and 32.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting point about like having an older sister that you can kind of look up to in that way. Because I have an older sister as well, and I did follow a lot of her footsteps. It's like even going to college, like I went to the same college that she went to. I almost wanted to do the same, like study the same thing. Then I was like, oh no, let me go this direction. But like we have something like footsteps to follow. So it's interesting. I would be interested to hear, and anybody who's on the live, please leave your comments as well. It would be interesting to hear, like, how do you navigate relationships when you don't have when you're the oldest sibling? So I would love to hear from Christine and Elisa, because I'm sure that's like, I never even thought about how it could be even more difficult, So.
I want to read a comment from Pretty Ace. She said, South Sudanese parents are to blame for our singledom. So since they so badly need us to be married immediately, they should arrange the marriage, preferably 6'3", making six figures, for a part-time pilot.
That's right.
A part-time pilot?
I agree. Arrange it then.
Listen,
Don't on us to find someone. And they do that sometimes, so they could recommend people to you.
they don't do that no more.
They do sometimes. If they start feeling like kind of worried about you, they will start recommending people to you.
I mean, I can agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead. Like, I guess, like, how do you navigate? How has it been difficult for you to like navigate relationships and getting married at a certain age when you don't really have like an example?
Yeah.
That's what said, girl, call me. That is my brother to a T. I love it.
Okay, well,
Sure.
Well, yes, I'm the oldest. I do. I mean, I do have that pressure, but like honestly, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really.
You're not following. You're not.
Well, I mean,
giving
okay,
in to
well,
the
the thing is,
pressure?
yeah, I'm not really giving in to the pressure. But,
Yeah.
like with my parents, like I'm just doing what I could do, and I mean, just being the oldest, like I mean, I did have to learn about being selfish more, and just like thinking about okay, you know what, like my education. I mean, like marriage is gonna come when it comes. I don't know what because I mean I'm not going out, but yeah. So just like yeah, so I'm just, like right now I'm just following what I want to do per se. So yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with what Nak was saying because I do feel the pressure, but at the same time, I think the way that we're getting to do it now is honestly the right way. I feel like being able to know who you are first as an individual before being thrown into marriage and being a mother, and it's such a selfless job that I do feel like you could lose yourself if you don't even know who you are. So I feel like we're like honored or privileged to be able to kind of, I guess, map out our lives. So of course, most of us will say, okay, I want to go get a degree so that in case anything happens, I know that I can take care of myself because you need to be able to take care of yourself in America. We have grown up in different culture, a different time period. So it's no longer like, okay, get married, go to your husband's house and live forever because anything can happen. So I feel like we do need to go get our education, get established. And if we do get married 25 and up, 30, I think that getting married at 30, honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. So it's that battle that I'm having with like in South Sudan or Sudan, you're old as hell, right? Once you're past 25, it's like, okay, like,
Yeah.
like what's wrong?
Me and Elisa actually, we actually hung out with one of our uncles. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Christine. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm
No,
so
no,
sorry.
that's all I was to say. Like in the Western world, it's a little different. Like it's a different time. People are getting married older. So I'm struggling with like, yeah, I see where you guys are coming from, and it does make you feel bad sometimes. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't imagine having gotten married at 20 or 21. Just thinking back to where I was at mentally, I couldn't imagine that for myself. So I just have to chalk it up to, hey, as long as I'm happy, who cares who's not? You know?
Right. Me and Elisa actually hung out with one of our uncles, and he has like a brother that's kind of within our age group. And he just came from South Sudan, and he was pretty much talking about how like we're old, like
aunties, it's okay.
He's like, maybe he's like, you guys can find somebody here, maybe because in America it is more of a norm to get married later. But he's like, in South Sudan, people are gonna think like there's something wrong with you. Like,
also, okay, if you're just not doing anything with your life, then okay, it's like, what have you been doing these last 10, 15 years? Okay, but if you have been doing stuff, like obviously accomplishments don't mean as much, like they still feel like you do need to get married and have, but if you've been doing something and you have a goal and plan, then that's okay. You know, I feel like it's a different time. Like I don't feel shame, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we can get into this segue. So our mothers obviously dreamed of our stability. I know my mom always wanted me to be like an independent woman, wanted me to kind of be able to do things that maybe she wasn't able to do. like go to school, like achieve like higher education, get a good job, and just like accomplish some goals that obviously a lot of our mothers weren't able to do in South Sudan because of the war, and and how like the culture is set up, the structure, like the gender roles, and women stay home and take care of the kids. You don't go to school, you don't go find work. Here, my mom really pushed me to like be successful. I'm sure all of our mothers have done the same. So do you think that we're living their reality? Like, do you think that we're living up to what they want, or do you think that they would want us to be like married right now? Or I don't know. I can't. No, you've been married. You've done it. But I guess for us, the ones that are not married, and the audience who's not married, like, do you think that your mom would be happy for where you're at, or would they prefer you to be, the traditional way? You can go ahead, Grace. You want to answer?
Okay, sorry. I was trying to mute it.
Yeah.
Unmute it. My mom, I think if it was like 5 years ago, she'd be so happy that I'm at the place where I'm at right now. Yeah, I think because my sisters got married, like I think one at like 26, another at 28. I'm later than them, but I don't necessarily think she cares that much anymore. But I definitely, right now, she definitely wants me to, find my mate and all of that. But yeah, so I know she would be happy as heck if I did find somebody right now.
I love it. What messages did anybody have something to say? I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
I did want to ask Nok because I feel like you were able to still, go to school, go play basketball overseas, come back, kind of live your life a little bit before you got married, but you also were able to live in South Sudan too. What were you kind of seeing during that time for like women your age? I assume when you were living there, you weren't married yet, or were you?
Yeah. So when I got to Juba, I was very single.
Yeah.
And living, like I had been living on my own since, I left for college like at 18. And so when I moved back to Juba, I think I was like 24. So I had been by myself. And so moved back, and we were all in the same compound, like living with my parents. And then like, I'm here, I'm 24. I'm like,
Yeah.
myself and want to move around. And so, and that was a time where there was like a lot of other diaspora that came back. And like for my experience, I had not always been around a lot of South Sudanese women, because like we grew up in Indiana, it was very minimal. And then when I went to DC, I was, I was at Georgetown, but I played basketball. So I was also very busy. So I wasn't able to like nurture those relationships. But when I got to South Sudan, man, like I built some friendships with some girlfriends, and we were trying to go out at night, And so I can remember my mom and my dad was just looking at me like, I don't know, girls shouldn't move like that. This, that, like those comments,
Yeah, I remember that when I was in Juba too. My mom would be like, maybe slow down a little bit. Like, So.
Yeah. But like at the same time, like I'm like, you have your whole life you had talked to me about South Sudan and like there's peace and like it's just amazing how young people can move free. And I'm like, I'm one of those young people. Let me move free. And so it was really me and my father who were like butting heads because he raised me to be very independent and tough. And now I'm like experiencing this South Sudan culture and, also meeting South Sudanese men and, trying to figure out like my place in the world. And am I, oh, wow, like these are our men, because I had never literally been around that many South Sudanese. So it was an amazing experience for me to learn my culture, to appreciate my culture, and to respect, the beauty of my people. And but still, like at that time, I started feeling the pressure from my aunties. Like, what are you doing? Like, you need to, figure it out. There's this person here, and there's this person here. And there used to be people that would come to the house to request marriage. Like somebody came from the village to ask for your hand. And I'm like, what? That's crazy.
So you just said you were able to choose?
Yeah, because my dad also knew, like he's like, you know, get your cousins to talk to them. They know you. Like, there's no way that's gonna that's gonna. And they're like, but he's like, men are free. They can talk to you if they want. And so I think my dad did a very good job of trying to balance it out to say, hey, like, you know, you are single, you're back home, so if people are interested, they can approach you, but we're not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. But I think a lot of the pressure that I felt was just that general, like, you could feel that, okay, now I've been here for a year, I'm 25, still, like, now that that's not old at all, but like, wow, I'm 25, and should I be considering marriage? Even I turned 26 in Juba, and I still hadn't found the right guy, you know. And then, like, the whisperings and the aunties and you know, like, the family parties, the conversations. But I think as strong South Sudanese women, knowing what we want and having like supportive other South Sudanese women around me, the friends that I made, we were all kind of in the same boat, right? And we all kind of wanted, yes, we want a relationship, but it has to be the right one, and it has to be something that serves us and perhaps our future partner. I think in Juba, it was so much different, but at the end of the day, it was a great experience.
I love that. And I think that's important, what you just said about making sure that it's the right one and you're making the right decision. Because a lot of us grew up not really seeing our parents like express, romance is subjective depending on culture and all that. But a lot of our families, like a lot of our parents we didn't really see like them like enjoy each other, or like show that like that love and that romantic side. So I do think that it's important to be with somebody you truly want to be with. A lot of our parents, our aunts got married out of necessity or their parents said like arranged marriages or dowry reasons. So I love that your family gave you the ability to choose. And who wants to read? Beth Dow. She said, I don't think that was mom's goal for me in this season in my life, but my aunt's definitely starting to throw out the idea, which is very funny. And like Nook said, was saying it's a very quick switch. Yeah. It's like they don't want you to talk about relationships, so where's your husband?
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like expectations from women have shifted at all, like within, I guess, our parents' generations, our generations, or do you think that it's still exactly the same, even though we've grown up in America and we kind of have this different upbringing? Do you feel like the expectations of us are the same as women?
Christine, I think you're going in and out. Can you say that one more time?
I was basically just asking, do you think expectations for us as South Sudanese women has changed at all within like the last generation, especially with us growing up in the diaspora and having like a different upbringing? Do you think we're still held to the same standard regardless, or do you think that expectations are starting to change a little bit?
That's for the whole panel.
It's a tricky one. Go ahead, Grace.
Oh no, I honestly had nothing. So
I don't think there's change. I feel like we're still held to the same standard, even though we have this. And it's like I find myself struggling to explain sometimes. Like, I know this is the culture and this is the way things have been, but what do we do when we've grown up completely different than like all these different generations before us? Like, we're trying to navigate obviously what's expected of us, but at the same time, it's within this whole new world where you're expected to do all these other things at the same time as well and do them well and excel in all these different avenues at the same exact time, when before all you had to do was just like find a husband, get married, be a good wife. And now you're having to be the career woman and all this other stuff at the same time. So
yeah, I agree with that. It's like, even though we're in a different society, they still hold us to the same expectations of like when we're back, as if we're back home. So it's like, not only do we have to be successful in our school and study and make sure we're passing our, with flying colors, we also have to like go to college, find a good job, but then also, where's your husband? Like, it's like we still have the exact same standards, even though we're not in the same, society. So it's like, where's the give and take, the balance? But I mean, to be fair, our parents never had the chance to like balance it out for us, or create like a scale where it's like, okay, we understand you're in America now, so maybe we should do things a little bit differently. They're still bringing back the same mindset, naturally. So so it's difficult to please both ends of being successful, but also finding someone in a reasonable time and getting married and doing all that stuff. But
I also I think it's very interesting in the US. It's like very regional. So I have some really good friends from Dallas, and I know there's like a big population of South Sudanese, and so within that population, the culture remains very strong. But then in other areas where there's like
that's true,
a small population of South Sudanese, a lot of the culture has, or that some of that, the bad parts of the culture maybe have fallen away because they are more intermingled amongst other communities. And so like I've heard stories where, like in some, like they're still expecting women to kneel and things like that, which I have not seen because, I haven't been in a very concentrated area of South Sudanese. And so when I hear those stories, definitely think that the expectation on us is the same, even though we are light years ahead, like meaning that we have, we are given so many more opportunities than our mothers were given. We were given opportunities to drive, to go to school, to live on our own. Because even in Juba, I remember telling my dad, "Oh, I'm gonna go get my own place," and he was like, "People don't do that in Juba. You can't live by yourself.
right?
What kind of girl is that?"
Yeah.
So it's like. So that's what I've noticed just hearing the stories from my friends who have been in areas where there's a lot of concentration of South Sudanese people.
Yeah. Emmanuel Ngoy said, "Can Sudanese men live?" Oh, I'm sorry. What did I do? I can't see the full question. Can South Sudanese men live up to the standards that are acceptable for Sudanese women? It's so funny he's asking this because he's like right here. He's like in my house.
We're not doing that.
He's gonna say hi later. Let's answer that. Can Sudanese men live up to the standards that are acceptable for Sudanese women?
Definitely.
They can?
I think they can. I think they can, because normally, like a lot of some of our young South Sudanese men grew up in the diaspora here are very successful. They also pursue their education. They also care. They also care about the family that they want to produce in the future. So there are a lot of great, exceptional, South Sudanese men, and so we are also, raised the same with those career goals and those as expectations and getting our education. So I definitely think they can. I think just now in the United States there's so many women. So
yeah,
all the good guys are gone. But I think that
the matchmaking is not there anymore because everybody has options outside of the South Sudanese culture. Yeah. So that's the part that's difficult. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of good South Sudanese men, but it's like the pool is so vast now. Like they don't have to date South Sudanese women, and we don't have to date South Sudanese men. So it's like,
then why are they DMing me for y'all?
Oh wow! Did you hear that?
No, what did you say?
What did you say?
Men DMing him for us.
Oh.
I don't know, but
honestly, I feel like this is where the elders can come into play, because I think that the whole matchmaking thing is kind of similar, not really so much to arrange, but kind of like recommending people to each other that you might not have considered before. I think it's a good way to kind of foster like marriages to happen within the community, because if you don't know someone, you don't know. So I think that that's a healthy way. If you're describing like people coming to the house, I think that's more of the traditional route. It does still happen today to where someone will approach, maybe not come directly to your house like back home, but will approach someone in your family and kind of like, they call it door knocking or knocking on the door, like asking for your hand in marriage.
Yeah.
I think those traditional ways,
I love that.
I was opposed to it, but now that I'm getting older, I feel like it's a good way to be introduced to really good Bible between the families. I think it's a good way to go about it.
Yeah. Also, I think if you have an opportunity to go to South Sudan, I think that's good too. Nak, you may agree or disagree with this one. I would love to hear your input. But I think when I went to South Sudan, there's a lot of like a successful, like, you know, people that are doing well for themselves, that are working hard, that either came from the diaspora or they grew up in South Sudan. And I think there's a lot of eligible people there. Men and women that I've met, you know, people that I've never seen in my life, but it's like, oh, they're from Australia, or they're from Canada, or they're from Norway. So the pool kind of opens up again when you go back to Juba. Mm-hmm. So go to South Sudan, y'all. Oh, there's a comment. Mary said, this is so random, but why do the men in the diaspora always go back home to get their wives? Like, what about us, the women here? What should we be doing? Should we be doing the same? Yes.
Yeah.
How do y'all feel? That's true.
I think you guys are on the same playing field, like you said, maybe education wise or just mentality. I think that it could be. But I feel like for women, we're a little bit more prideful or resistant to going to go back home to get your man. I don't know. I feel like for men, it makes more sense. But for women, I feel like I personally wouldn't want to go back home to look for a husband. I feel like that would be good.
Oh, Lisa said the same. I don't see anything wrong with it.
I think the logistics of it is a big issue.
Just go on vacation. Say you're just going on vacation.
Yeah, like there and it just happens naturally. But I don't think
okay. Yeah. I wouldn't suggest going there specifically for that. Yeah. But I do think I think it's fine for you. But I guess so she said,
so who marries us?
I think if you get a traditional man, there are some traditional minded men that are here, South Sudanese men, that are still like keeping certain aspects of the culture. I think there are a lot of eligible people. It's just that we're so isolated. So that's why I was suggesting earlier, maybe some type of matchmaking with the elders, or even if we can do stuff on here, like matchmaking with people, just different ways to introduce people to each other. That's really all it is. It's just an introduction.
Yeah, but I mean, that is a good question. That is true, because if the men are going elsewhere to find women, what are the women supposed to do? What's our options if the men are going out to find their women? So that's a good question. Lady Emmanuel said, ladies.
Yeah, so read this one and then he has them.
Okay. Emmanuel said, ladies, when seeking a partner, is it important to find the right person or for the right person to find you? Are you agnostic? And then he also said, sometimes I feel like women are more concerned with finding the right person, than focusing on becoming the right person themselves.
That's why we don't have to, as South Sudanese, we shouldn't marry so young, because we need time to like find ourselves and develop. And so I agree with you. Like, let us take our time. Let us, have experiences, right? If we want to live overseas, we want to model, we want to play basketball, we want to do whatever we want to do. And as you have those experiences, you learn more about yourself and the person you can tolerate. Because at the end of the day, it is about, being tolerant. And I think when I was 24, or 25, or when I first got to Juba, there was no way that I could marry somebody. Like, I think about my mindset of how it has changed from then to even like 3 years being in Juba, or 4 years. It was so different. And so I think we need time. And I think it's great that the numbers, like women are given a little bit more grace here in the United States to delay that, and hopefully, like our diaspora, a lot of has gone home to South Sudan. So we have one of the biggest diasporas in the world because of our conflict. And a lot of us have gone home. So hopefully also that age range will change back home too, you know, like there's more tolerance for waiting a little bit to find yourself so that you can find the right person.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm interested if anybody's you know, joining us from South Sudan. I'd be interested to know if like the age frame when women are getting married has kind of like gotten older, or is it still the same? Are they still practicing like getting married fairly young, or have they kind of adopted this new like kind of, I guess you could say, Western culture of like waiting, giving yourself some time to get married? And I think it's important to, like you said, to wait and give yourself time to have experiences before you get married. Because I don't know if y'all seen, but there are some aunties who kind of like, you know, they kind of revert back to like their old, like it's like they didn't really have the chance to have enjoy themselves or have experiences or have fun in their lives. So now when they're older, they're kind of going back, or you see them at the clubs, or you see them and it's like, auntie, what are you doing here? Like, you know, or because they didn't have the opportunity. It's not their fault. They just never had like that buffer period to where you can enjoy yourself and find yourself as a young woman. So Lundluka, I hope I pronounced that right. He said, proud of you ladies. Glad you are having this discussion. No, thanks for sending the link. Oh, Grace.
I don't even know who that is, but
That's your sister.
I'm glad you got the link.
Is this is who, Christine?
Yeah, it's her sister, but I'll pull it.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
Hey, that's so great.
And then also said, Grace, you should know how brave you are. You sharing this very deep part of your story is so inspiring. I absolutely agree. Like, yes, I love it. Muna said, I agree that the expectations for women often remain the same. To excel as a career woman while also fulfilling the roles of a wife and a mother. Yeah, like how do you combat that? Like how do you, you know, navigate that? So I guess we're learning. That's the point of this conversation, because we're still learning how to navigate it. Lally Tap, hey girl. She said, Sudanese women are raised with the expectation of becoming wives from an early age. For many of us, even a small mistake or refusing to cook is met with question. Who's going to marry you? Personally, that's why I'm looking for the right man. Men are often not held to the same standards and discipline when it comes to marriage that we as women are expected to follow. That's a good point. And I think that's what Emmanuel's question kind of fell, is like, are the men meeting the same standards as the women?
Can I first?
Go ahead, Emmanuel. Go ahead and say something. Emmanuel's here.
Tell these bitch niggas to tighten up.
Emmanuel, get in the camera if you're going to say something.
Man, that's crazy.
Come on. Emmanuel wants to say something real quick, girl. Come on. Emmanuel, introduce yourself, by the way.
Y'all know me. I'm Emmanuel.
Hi.
Emmanuel's part of the podcast. He's a regular face. But go ahead. What's your take on this?
I'm not gonna lie.
What's your theory?
This camera and that lighting, crazy work. But I'm Emmanuel, stand-up comedian, long-time listener.
And podcast member.
And podcast member, long-time member of the Patreon. Well, subscribe. But honestly, I think that Sudanese men and women, for example, men haven't been held to the same standard when it comes to home taking and everything else because of the wars and everything in between. But I think we did raise a generation of men who now, when it comes to like financially living up to the standard, when it comes to like having to pay for, i.e. cows and everything else, you gotta live up to the standard of what's going on in the West. It's not living to the standard back home, because I know the South Sudanese brothers, it's okay, some stuff happens. But if you're going back home, well, if you're bringing her back to the U.S., why is she coming back home to a 2-bedroom apartment? Oh, I'm gonna leave after that.
All right, love it. How do y'all feel about that?
From Munu, she said the right partner is someone who not only supports and compliments you, but also helps you thrive both individually and as a couple. A strong partnership is essential for achieving balance in life, allowing each person to grow and succeed in their own pursuits while nurturing our harmonious relationship. And I 100% agree.
Yeah, I love that. But I want to hear from the chat too. How do you guys feel about Emmanuel's point as well, as far as the men meeting the standards of the women? I feel like, I mean, that's from a man saying that. So how do y'all feel about that? Because if we said it, we would have got dragged. You said what, Chris?
I wanted to ask Nok a question because she's actually married. How did you know that your husband was the one?
So that's a good question. And I mean, to be transparent, I'm no longer married. But at the time when, but I still think that I had a wonderful marriage when it was working, and that um, he's a wonderful man,
Mhm.
and wonderful father to my children. But so I think like part of it was the being a little bit older, honestly. Like we met when I was 27, and I was ready at that point to look for a serious relationship. And then we actually, because in South Sudan, people don't really date. So in that essence, it helped because it was like a, quiet 3-year courting of dating where it wasn't really anybody's business, or there wasn't, my close friends knew, but there wasn't not a lot of noise from the outside. And so that really helped us. And so we got to know each other. And I also think the expectation, like I think somebody in the chat was saying, like about cooking and things like that. I think when you meet the right man, they understand that like what partnership is. And so for me, I think part of the amazing part is like, wow, when you find somebody that supports you and is like in line with your goals, it's like it's a beautiful thing because you have support. And so that's the kind of person he was. We at the time, our values aligned, like he was supportive in the sense that I knew I'm a very driven person. A lot of South Sudanese women are very driven and have, big goals for themselves. And you have to find a man that gives you that space and supports you to do that. And he gave me that support that I needed. And so I think it's so important because at least like I think when we're younger, like, and I said that like at 24, I was not ready to get married. Like I think I could have been easily influenced to believe that, oh man, this is love. I love this. But not look beyond of like some of that partnership and like those things that you really need to develop a good partnership and to maybe raise kids together or have a household together. So yeah, I think it's beyond like the love in the beginning, that the infatuation, but like to really to values and support. Because as women and as really like women that are driven, we do need to find partners that accept how we are naturally.
I agree 100%.
Lolly Tap said, "Great point, Emmanuel. There's no right or wrong opinion. Everyone's perspective is valid. It's important to acknowledge it."
Sunny said, OMG, I'm so glad I caught a live. Hi, ladies. Hi, Sunny. We're so happy you're here. I love the live shows because it's a lot more interactive and we can actually speak in real time. So I love it. But yeah, no, I love the idea what you said about like finding a man, especially South Sudanese man that knows that you're driven and they support you, your drive, and support your goals. Because I think we hear a lot of, I think people talk more about the negative aspects a lot, especially in South Sudanese relationships, as opposed to like the positives. Where you said you had a husband that supported you, that he didn't try to suppress your goals or try to stop you from. And sometimes we hear that like, oh, men they get intimidated by women that are successful. So it's good to hear stories that there's men out there that will support you, that are happy for you, that want to have a partnership and not be like above you, I guess. Like, they're okay with being like having that partnership. So I love that.
I have one last question for the panel.
Yeah.
What does success mean to you now versus, I know Grace is 29, so versus the other 20?
Wait, what was the last part of what you said versus what?
In your early 20s, so what does success mean to you now versus in your early 20s?
For me, is to have impact and influence pertaining to just like the struggles that I went through, just so that I'm able to help free somebody from their mental institution that they're in. And so I really just want to make a difference in that way versus back in the day, I just wanted to I mean, I don't know. I wanted to do a lot of different things, but it was still based off of trying to like technically people please, because a lot of the times I was kind of going with what somebody would tell me, like, oh, you'd be good at this, you'd be good at that, and I would just go with the win. But now I think success for me is, yeah, definitely making an impact in other people's life and influencing them to live a better life, because you don't need alcohol to be, you know, whoever you want to be and to do the things that you want to do, and you don't need that to escape as well. And so yeah, that's what success looks like to me.
And I'm gonna ask you to mute.
She said, "Can you mute?" Because the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Christine, your mic is a little. I don't know. It's like in and out for some reason.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself too.
Oh no, you're good. You can talk, but it just goes in and out. So maybe if we ask if you could say that again, it's because yeah, it's like going in and out. And I have one question too. Okay, so I'm looking at our framework that we built. So what's one piece of advice you would give your younger self? And this is for everyone who's listening, like please leave a comment as well. And then also, have you ever faced judgment for your choices? And how did you handle it? And I think that's a good question because the South Sudanese community is very judgmental sometimes. Just to be straightforward, sometimes we like just we could be judgmental, and I think all of us have done that. Like I guess I'll hold myself accountable as well. You know, we see maybe other people that are maybe not doing a certain thing that's in line with what we've grown up to, like learning the acceptable route, that what's the acceptable route, and they may have taken a different route. And you hear your mother say something like, oh, that person, don't be like that person. That's like a big thing. Don't be like your cousin who did this. Mm-hmm. Have you ever felt judged in your community? Adol, I guess let's go with Adol's question first. Adol said, as a 20-year-old living in Scandinavia, I'm still quite young and have only in the recent years stepped into adulthood. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you're joining the conversation. Adao said, trust yourself more. Your instincts are powerful, and you don't need anyone's approval to chase your dreams. Stay focused and don't let self-doubt or outside noise slow you down. I know that's right. Yeah. Adult's from Scandinavia, and she said, but one thing I have learned is that first and foremost, it is important to find passion in life. How I define success is by doing the things your heart really craves for, leaving a mark on the world. Love it. And then who wants to answer the question about like feeling judged in the community? Have we ever had a moment where we felt judged, and how can we not do that in the future, or teach our kids not to judge people's route or their place in the South Sudanese community?
I do feel judged. I mean, they've blatantly said it out loud. For me, even being sober. But it's kind of weird to me because I'm just like, you should just look at my story and change too. But so I definitely feel judged for telling the truth, and sometimes they want me to hide it or not speak too loud because it's going to be an embarrassment. But I think hiding the stuff in the closet is more embarrassing because people outright already know. It's just now you got to be strong enough to either stop doing it or just don't say anything, I guess. So I do feel that way. And then I think what was the second question? I'm sorry.
You're just like, what would you do in the future to like not bring that shame to the community? Like, for example, when we get older and we have our own kids and they may have a similar story, struggling with drugs or alcohol, how can we be better in our community in that way?
I think actually listening to what the kids are like struggling with, because I know recently, since a lot of death has happened in our community, I've gone to the funerals and the parents are more so just like, if you're dealing with drugs, don't hide it, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you have to realize that you're also kind of the problem, because sometimes the kids do come to you and they might not say it in the language that they understand, not saying like in Dinka or anything like that, or our home language. Sorry, I'm Dinka, but not in our home language, but more so like if they come crying all the time or if they look extremely depressed and they weren't that way, you have to kind of analyze your child and see what is wrong with them. And if you can't do anything, maybe ask your siblings. We have a lot of aunties and uncles, but it's the fact that our culture is more so like don't bring shame to the family, you know, let's hide everything. So it makes it super difficult, and everybody feels judged because their child is going down astray or anything like that. And then I also want to add, like, with our community on Facebook, I've noticed a lot of aunties just kind of like going back and forth and talking bad about each other. And I feel like you guys are the example, you know, we see you guys, and you can say like you're, oh, good job, Grace, for like speaking up, blah blah blah, but you're literally doing evilness, like, you know, on your own. Not saying evil, but you know, they're speaking
No
bad
evil
about
girl.
each other.
Love
Yeah, they're speaking.
Love and hip
Well,
hop.
it actually is evil, yeah. But and then because mainly like I know the stuff that was happening with Sudan, like just northern Sudan, a couple months ago, and the things that South Sudanese people were saying, I was just like, dude, that was happening to us, and now you're wishing death upon them. You're wishing them to get burned. You're wishing their kids to get RAPED. Like it's crazy. So I just think that like we need to do inner work. We need to stop with the Facebook going back and forth, like attacking each other, even just, yeah, just all of that.
Can I comment real quick?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
You're speaking a healed language to a recently scarred culture. It's like speaking to a young man who is very angry. It's gonna take some time for it to soak into our culture, especially how much damage has happened to us. Whether it's the men, the women, everybody in between, it's gonna take some time for our elders, especially because they've seen it, they've been through it. And I think you're right, because now they get the internet. Now they get to see, but they don't understand the effects of what the internet is. They don't understand that it's permanent, number one. They don't understand that, like, effectively, they're showing everybody that interaction. They think it's going to be done. It was on Facebook Live. It's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
They don't realize it could be replayed again. And that's what my point is, like, a lot of our parents need to be told, hey, yo, what you do online, we got to teach them. We got to slap their hand and be like, no, Yazoo, stop. Get your
But I mean, I understand that, but that's for like atrocities. But I'm talking about just in general. Like they would literally be like, this person, da 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 da. Like they'll just come at them because I don't know. Like it has nothing to do with the wars. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's our own people going back and forth. So I feel like that could be a culture thing, but at the same time,
That's a trauma
no,
thing.
we need.
I think
That's a
Okay.
trauma.
I think so too, and I think it's
Asians have trauma, but they don't be going online attacking each other like that.
I mean,
don't know.
wait. Yeah, they do. I think we have a perception of like the rest of the world is clean cut and all that stuff because they have so much media out there, and we get to see our stuff so raw. But the truth of it is, there's always the same thing as us, and I think we have to.
I know, but when are we gonna stop making excuses though and saying this is just our
I'm not
culture?
making
When are
excuses.
we gonna actually like, you know, take
You gotta-
accountability and saying like,
You got to tell them to shut up. I've had to. I'm not gonna say what I had to do with an uncle, but I've had to do some things. I had to put hands on people. It doesn't matter if they're elders or
Ladies
anything else.
Association does not
They
support
don't support
violence.
it. They don't support it. Only I support it. But it doesn't support it. But there's a certain point where you have to understand that now I'm an adult, and now they have to understand that like I'm not your child anymore. And now I'm telling you that this is what the culture is now, because everybody else is watching this. Everybody that sees this, the younger generation now is the culture. They can't tell us what the culture is because they'll be gone soon. We are the culture.
And I think also, Grace, just to add on to like the gossiping, the judgmental piece, since our culture or our society is so big on like reputation, I think a way for people or families to make themselves look better or feel better is if they talk down on someone else's family, you know, or to say, or to like expose someone else's family because it'll take attention away from what's going on with them. And you know, because I've seen that, I've seen that with my own eyes. Like, you know, you'll hear an auntie say something about another cousin. It's like, well, you got this going on, like, you know, like why are you talking about somebody else? It's just a way to like deflect and to, I guess, like it's insecure, like an insecurity thing that hopefully our generation can change that, because you came out about your own issue, like you came out about you know, dealing with alcohol and alcoholism and alcohol abuse. And you took the shame away. You stripped the shame away. You didn't go and say something negative about another South Sudanese girl to deflect from what you have going on. You came out and you came clean about your issues, and it's actually admirable. And we looked at you like, wow, that's amazing, that's beautiful. And I think people will learn from that, be like, okay, you know, I don't have to I don't have to talk down on someone else to feel better about what I got going on. I could just be transparent about what got going on. And I think that's going to be the shift as well with the new generation. And you're part of that, Grace, honestly. So
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in there real quick, guys, just for the sake of time for our guests. So we do have a few comments there. I know my mic is cutting in and out. But I don't read. But we can do final thoughts, and if anyone else in the comments wants to join in, they can. But I just don't want to hold our guests hostage because we're already at the hour mark. Yeah, I'll pull up these comments, and then we can do final thoughts, and then if our guests leave or stay on.
Okay, sounds good. So you're gonna bring the comments up first? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Nuna Dabiba said, as women, we need to set the standards for men to meet. It's important to understand who you are as a woman and recognize the type of man who truly compliments you. She also said, don't settle, because the right man will be both willing and able to meet your expectations. Mm-hmm. Love the don't settle. Love it. Nyatan said, I would tell my younger self to chill the F out. Mm-hmm. Time is a construct. And as a young woman, you have so much time to figure out your path. Mm-hmm. Cherish the experiences and learn from your mistakes. I love that.
But not with the babies. The babies be going quick. Sorry.
Emmanuel. Adele said, you are capable of more than you think. Every setback is just a setup for a comeback. Mm-hmm. Keep pushing, keep believing, and don't let fear stop you from reaching your potential. Words I wish someone would tell me is what she wanted to say. Mm-hmm. She also said, people will always have opinions, but their judgment doesn't define you. Focus on your growth, embrace your uniqueness, and keep moving forward with confidence. I love the words of encouragement. Simply Naya said, I think Grace's point is, despite the trauma, culture, etc., it doesn't absolve them of responsibility or to be held accountable for their toxic behaviors. That's true. And how do we hold our elders accountable? Because that's disrespect in their eyes. Right. You don't challenge them. So that's I would be interested to hear y'all's comments on that. Adele also said, our culture struggles with accountability because too often pride and blame takes priority over growth and reflection. True progress starts when we own our actions, learn from mistakes to break the cycle. I 100% agree. So let's go ahead and get into final thoughts. Do we have any? This was a really good conversation, by the way. But I would love to hear y'all's final thoughts on everything. Anything that you wanted to say that maybe you haven't said, or any takeaways. And let's start with you, Nora.
Yeah. So I think those comments are great, and I agree with all of them. Yeah. And maybe what I would tell my younger self, or something that I actually practice now, and I love to share with folks, is that what we should do is we should, grieve our losses. And when I say that, I mean, we're all doing so many things, particularly us women in this, and how we're navigating womanhood. We have goals, maybe we're in school, maybe we're working executives and we're chasing things, or maybe we're supporting our kids or supporting our husband or whatever, or supporting ourselves. There's so many things that we're going after, and sometimes we just don't get it. We miss, and so I often, what I do, and I think I learned this as part of my basketball skills, right? It's you play so many games, you lose, you have to grieve it, but you have to move on, because the next day you have another opponent. And so what I do in life, if maybe I'm chasing a contract, or I'm working with a client or something like that, or it's a social, there's a friendship that failed, I take 24 hours. Now I'm more skilled at it. So I just literally take 24 hours. I don't try to fix the problem. I just grieve my loss, whether I just stay on the couch, or I cry in the shower, or whatever. I don't try to solve it. I just try to feel the pain and just accept it. This is what it is. I didn't win. I lost, whatever. That's what it is. Next day, I sleep on it, refreshed. And now I can actually think about how to attack it, attack that problem. So I say it's so important as women that we give ourselves that opportunity to grieve our loss, whatever it is. And I'm not talking about like big losses, like the loss of a, the loss of a family member, or maybe like the end of a relationship or anything like that, but challenges in our everyday life. Grieve that so you can let it go. Then the next day, try to solve it and move forward. It's something that works for me so well that I've been able to kind of like do it repetitively. Um, and so, as women, as we are navigating all this stuff and it's coming at us, let us grieve it, let us move away from it. And the next day, we just, we really move forward. And so, that's the advice I would give to myself, because I could remember as a younger person just thinking like, oh my God, how am I going to solve this? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then like just wrestling with it for so long, right? But if I just would have been like literally be still, accept it, and then the next day try to figure out that solution. So some people, maybe 48 hours, whatever you need, but like set a time frame where you just accept your loss, so then you can move on from it.
And I love that, because I think a lot of South Sudanese people, we deal with anxiety, especially us young people, and we don't really talk about it. And I know I haven't been diagnosed for it, but I feel like I have like a lot of anxiety, because it's like all of these things that we even talked about, like the pressure to, meet this goal and do this and do that and get married and then like work and make sure I'm successful here. And so it's like, all of that is stressful, even though like I may not talk about it. We're talking about it now. But it's like we sleep with that. But why not like, just be okay with where you're at, or if there's things that maybe you didn't accomplish, or you had a bad day, or you had a bad work day or something like that, like, just like letting that
release that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's important. I hope like everybody kind of takes something away from that. Emmanuel says we have to be willing to end practices that harm and hinder ourselves. Just because they are traditional doesn't make it forever. I agree. Yeah, I agree. Any final thoughts from you, Grace?
Yes. So first of all, I want to rebuke the spirit of anxiety. Don't claim it, because it will come upon you. But what is it called? I wanted to say, I think the way that we can hold each other accountable for like the gossiping and all of that stuff is to just like actually say it straight up what it is, whoever that you see during that time. Like, don't just like have it written down like, hey, you said this at this time, blah blah blah, but actually come to them and being like, hey auntie, like I know this is not really of you, like you're not really this type of person, like if this is what you mean, you could say it like this, or to kind of like be encouraging to them too, because our parents and our aunties, they had to do a lot just to get here, and they don't really have the time to figure out like their emotional intelligence and all that stuff. And so I think just being patient, but being stern about like, hey, we shouldn't do this, is not a part of our culture, because I have done that, but granted, I let my emotions run me, and I was like, and so I could come at it a little bit better. And so I think definitely just talking to each other about that. But I think the reason why, because I feel like I don't really think it's necessarily tradition all the way, because when we first came to America, I really feel like our like just the Sudanese people, we were more of a community, and we were more leaning on each other. And I think the reason for that is because we really did have trust in God, and we really were in the Word a lot. And now we're all separate, we're all scattered, and we're all just like, well, I have my own problems. I don't really have time to deal with this cousin or this auntie or whatever. And so I think maybe like we are doing right now, bringing the community back, that will help us like be just more together and more encouraging of each other. Yeah. That was all.
Love that. Alisa?
Okay, well, my final thought would be I mean, as for both of y'all, like I did talk about like giving grace and being assertive, like with our community, because there is times where, I mean, our relatives will say something out of pocket, and so I feel like sometimes you do have to like lay it out and let them know, hey, you know what, that's not right. I mean, just pretty much like just showing that, you know what, we were like that kid that you thought we were, but now we are growing up as like women. So I feel like you should be able to like just, like communicate with them and like have them be able to like respect you as the woman that you are at that moment. So So yeah, just like being more assertive and like, I mean, in a respectful way, honestly. So yeah.
I love that because it's like bridging the gap between the generations as well. So I love that. Christine, anything that you have?
I'm just gonna hold back because I don't know if my mic is choppy or not. So.
Okay, no worries. But yeah, thank you, ladies, so much. Oh, a final thought. I mean, I think you guys laid out everything, honestly. Like, I took a lot away from this conversation. I think it was very fruitful, and I hope everyone in that's listening right now, I hope that you guys took a lot out of the conversation. Yeah, I think the audience, there's still more comments. The Dow said anxiety can be crippling, especially as South Sudanese women, carrying the weight of cultural expectations. The pressure to be strong, successful, and always put others first can be overwhelming. No, honestly. And I think that's a good way to bring it. Emmanuel said another great segment with well-defined frameworks. Carry on, ladies. Thank you so much. Let us know how what else do you want from us this month? We have one more live show, and then we're going back to the studio. So we will continue to do live shows, by the way, but we're going back to the studio, so we'll incorporate both the studio and the live show segment. But God said, thank you, ladies, for hosting yet another amazing conversation. I'm so glad to have been able to hear from the amazing panel of women. Thank you so much. Is it Angad? I'm trying to learn how to pronounce my
Angad.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, like that.
so bad at pronouncing it. That's my goal this year. But I know how to pronounce her last name down. Yes. Thank you so much, ladies. And thank you guys for watching the Ladies of Social podcast. Again, I want to say thank you both to Grace, to Nook. We really appreciate your sharing your experience, being willing to be transparent about your experiences. And we hope to have you back. And let's do this again very soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Nice to meet you guys. Thanks, Grace.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you guys for watching Ladies of Social podcast. We will see you guys next time. Love you guys. Bye. Thank you, Adele. We love you guys. You know, I forgot how to
once again, you gotta introduce.
And we're all still here. It's like when you're saying bye and y'all walk in the same direction.
Yeah.